Ladies and gentlemen, I know what it's like to wake up and feel the weight of the world pressing down on your shoulders. To open your eyes and before your feet even hit the floor, you're already battling thoughts that tell you you're not enough, that today will be just like yesterday, that the dreams you've been holding on to are slipping further and further away. But I came here to tell you that those thoughts, they're liars. And it's time we stop giving them the power to dictate our lives. You see, the mind is a battlefield. Every day we're engaged in a war between the truth of who we are and the lies the world tries to sell us. And if we're not intentional, if we're not vigilant, we'll find ourselves living out narratives that were never meant for us. But here's the good news. We have the authority to change the story. We have the power to renew our minds, to transform our thinking, and to step into the fullness of who we were created to be. Now, I know that sounds like a tall order, and you might be sitting there thinking, Sarah, that all sounds good, but how do I actually do that? How do I shift my mindset when life keeps throwing curveballs my way? I'm glad you asked. Because it's not about making one big leap. It's about the daily practices, the small, consistent steps that provide our minds and anchor our souls. First, we have to start with gratitude. I know it sounds cliche, but there's a reason why it's talked about so much. When we begin our day by acknowledging the good, by counting our blessings, we shift our focus from what's lacking to what's abundant. And that shift, it changes everything. It reminds us that even in the midst of trials, there's still beauty. That even when things aren't perfect, there's still progress. Gratitude is the lens that brings the goodness of our lives into focus. But gratitude alone isn't enough. We also have to be mindful of the voices we are allowing to speak into our lives. Who are you listening to? What narratives are you consuming? Because let me tell you, not every voice deserves a seat at your table. Some voices will feed your faith while others will fuel your fears. It's up to you to discern the difference and to guard your heart and mind from anything that doesn't serve your growth. And speaking of growth, let's talk about the power of emotions. Words have weight. They have the power to build up or tear down, to heal or to harm. And the words we speak over ourselves, they set the tone for how we navigate the world. So every day, look yourself in the mirror and declare the truth of who you are. I am worthy. I am capable. I am enough. And don't just say believe it. Let it sink deep into your spirit until it becomes an unshakable part of your identity. But even with all the positive affirmations in the world, there will still be challenges. There will still be moments that test your resolve and shake your confidence. And in those moments, it's essential to have a practice of reflection, to take a step back, breathe, and assess. What's working? What's not? Where do I need to adjust? Reflection isn't about dwelling on the negative. It's about learning, growing, and evolving. It's about recognizing that every setback is a setup for a comeback. And lastly, we have to talk about faith. Because without it, all these practices are just surface solutions. Faith is the foundation. It's the anchor that holds us steady when the storms of life rage. It's the belief in the unseen, the confidence that even when we can't trust hand, we can trust head, heart. It's knowing that we don't have to have it all figured out because we serve a God who does. And when we lean into that faith, when we surrender our need for control and trust in His plan, we find a peace that surpasses all understanding. Every morning you wake up, you're given a divine invitation to choose how you'll see the world. Before the emails start buzzing, before the noise of responsibility kicks in, before your feet hit the ground, there's a moment, still in sacred space, where your heart and your mind have a chance to align. And in that moment, what you choose to focus on can shift the trajectory of your entire day. Gratitude isn't just a cute quote or a motivational trend, it's a weapon. It's a mindset reset. It's a declaration that says, no matter what's happening around me, there is still something within me and around me worth praising. Gratitude has the power to reposition your pain and remind you of your purpose. Because life will always come with highs and lows. There will be seasons when everything flows, and there will be seasons when you're fighting just to breathe. But what if I told you that gratitude is the bridge that connects both of those equations? It doesn't deny the hardship, it just refuses to let the hardship have the final say. When you're intentional about gratitude, you're not waiting for everything to be perfect before you start celebrating. You celebrate in the middle. You praise through the process. You look at the broken pieces and say, even in this, I will find something good. There's something powerful about waking up and thanking God. God not just strong, but for the breath in your lungs, the roof over your head, the strength in your body, the lessons in your loss, and the growth in your grief. Because it's easy to give thanks when the doors are opening, when the people are clapping, when the answers are flowing. But real strength is found in giving thanks when you're still waiting, when the door hasn't opened yet, when the outcome is uncertain. That kind of gratitude, it builds endurance. It trains your mind to see beyond the moment. It gives you vision in the valley. Gratitude isn't about pretending everything is okay. It's about recognizing that even when it's not, you're still standing, you're still here. You're still moving, even if it's slow, and that movement matters. That progress, however small, deserves celebration. But we live in a world that constantly tries to pull our attention toward what's missing. Social media shows us everyone's highlight reel while we're sitting in the blooper reel of our own lives. Comparison creeps in, and before you know it, you're measuring your worth by someone else's chapter. But gratitude silences that noise. It reminds you of your own journey. It brings you back to your lane. It says, I may not be where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be. And that alone is enough reason to give thanks. You don't have to wait for a miracle to start practicing gratitude. The miracle is already in motion every time you wake up with breath in your lungs and a new opportunity to try again. Gratitude rewires the brain. It creates new patterns of thought. When you practice it consistently, it starts to become second nature. You start to notice the way that see at your window in the morning, the sound of laughter in the other room, the taste of your favorite meal, the friend who checks in on you, the moment of peace in the middle of chaos. You become sensitive to the beauty that's been surrounding you all along. Some days the only thing you'll have the strength to be grateful for is the fact that you got up, and that's okay. Some days it'll feel like there's nothing worth celebrating. That's when you dig deeper. That's when you speak to your soul and say, I will not be consumed by what's missing. I will acknowledge what's present. You start small if you have to. A cup of coffee, a kind word, a quiet moment. And those small things, they're not so small when you realize they're the foundation of joy. Practicing gratitude daily builds a kind of mental and emotional armor. It helps you filter your thoughts so you can better recognize when anxiety or negativity is trying to creep in. It gives you the strength to push back to say, no, today I choose to see what's working. Today I choose to remember what's right. And over time, that choice becomes a habit. And that habit becomes a mindset. That mindset becomes your protection against the lies that try to tell you you're not enough or that nothing is ever going to change. Gratitude is deeply spiritual because it aligns your heart with heaven, shifts the atmosphere around you. People feel it when you walk into a room when someone carries thankfulness. They bring peace with them. They're not shaken by every storm because they've learned to root themselves in what remains. And when you are rooted, you can't be easily pulled. Even when disappointment comes, you won't be destroyed by it. You'll feel it, you'll breathe it, but you won't become it. Because gratitude keeps your identity anchored in something deeper than circumstances. When life gets hard, and I mean really hard, gratitude doesn't always come easy. But that's when it becomes the most essential. You have to remind yourself that every try you've made it through has shaped you. Every tear you cried has watered a seed that's growing strength within you. And that strength is what gives you the courage to wake up and say, thank you, God, for another chance. Thank you for the lessons. Thank you for the people I've met, the things I've overcome, the ways I've changed. Don't wait until the storm passes to give thanks. Praise through it. Let your gratitude be loud enough to silence the fear that tries to paralyze you. There's power in your praise. There's healing in your thanksgiving. And as you build the habit of gratitude, you're not just changing your mindset, you're changing the atmosphere around you. You're creating a life that welcomes joy, even in sorrow. You're building a heart that sees light, even in the shadows. And that kind of heart, that kind of mindset, it becomes unbreakable. So, my friend, as you go about your days, remember this: building an unbreakable mindset is about never facing challenges. It's about equipping yourself with the tools to navigate them with grace and resilience. It's about choosing every day to focus on the good, to guard your heart, to speak life over yourself, to reflect and grow, and to anchor yourself in faith. Because when you do that, there's nothing you can't overcome. There comes a time in your life where you have to pause and take inventory not of what you have, but of what you're hearing, because what you're listening to is shaping you, whether you realize it or not. Every voice that enters your ears, every word that lands in your spirit, every opinion, every projection, every assumption, they're all seeds. And if you're not careful, you'll start watering leaves instead of flowers. You'll starting out someone else's fears instead of stepping into your own calling. Not every voice deserves your attention, and not every opinion is worth your energy. You've got to be intentional about the noise you let in, because noise can be loud, even when it's subtle. There are voices that come dressed as concern, but they carry the weight of discouragement. People will look you in the eye and tell you to be realistic when what they really mean is stay small. They'll say, I just don't want you to get hurt, when what they're really saying is, I don't believe that's possible. And if you're not grounded in who you are and who you're becoming, you'll mistake fear for wisdom. You'll start shrinking dreams that were meant to expand. You'll start editing your purposely into the comfort zones of people who were never called to carry your vision. What you listen to will eventually become what you believe. That's why the world spends so much time trying to get in your head. Advertisers want your ears, influencers want your attention, and half the time your own insecurities are shouting over the whispers of God. And let's be honest, sometimes the loudest voice you have to contend with isn't coming from someone else, it's coming from within. That inner critic, that voice that says you're not ready, not smart enough, not good enough. It didn't just appear out of nowhere. Somewhere along the way, that voice was planted. Maybe it came from childhood. Maybe it came from a failed relationship. Maybe it came from people who saw your potential but felt threatened by your power. Whatever the source, it's time to evict those voices. It's time to reclaim the narrative. You have to become a gatekeeper of your own mind, just like you wouldn't let a stranger walk into your house and start rearranging the furniture. You can't let just anybody walk into your life and start rearranging your mindset. You got to ask yourself, does this voice align with my vision? Does this message affirm my growth? Is this feeding my fear or feeding my faith? If it doesn't line up, it doesn't belong. Period. Some people will try to dress their doubt in love, but love doesn't discourage destiny. Real love will challenge you, yes, but it will never cripple you. When you're building an unbreakable mindset, you have to prioritize clarity. Clarity doesn't come from chaos. It comes from quiet. It comes from turning down the volume on the world so you can tune into the voice of truth. And sometimes that means distancing yourself, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, from people and places that don't support your growth. That doesn't mean you don't love them. It means you love yourself enough to protect what God is doing in you. You can't build a future while staying tethered to voices from your past that only know you by your mistakes. They can't see your evolution, so they speak to your history, but you're not living there anymore. Let them talk, you keep walking. It's also about being selective with the content you consume. We live in an age where everyone's talking, but not everyone's saying something worth hearing. You scroll through your phone and absorb hundreds of opinions, assumptions, and projections before you've even brushed your teeth. And if you're not careful, you'll find your spirit weighed down by conversations you were never meant to be a part of. Start asking yourself, is this lifting me up or dragging me down? Is this helping me think clearer or clouding my judgment? The words you feed your soul will show up in your attitude, your energy, your choices. Don't let toxic commentary disguise itself as entertainment. And when it comes to friendships and close relationships, discernment is key. Just because someone is close to you doesn't mean they're called to speak into you. Look for fruit. What kind of life do they lead? Are they growing or are they stagnant? Do they challenge you to rise, or are they more comfortable when you stay the same? Some relationships survive off your silence, off you staying small, compliant, and agreeable. But when you start growing, when you start raising your standards and guarding your peace, the dynamic shifts, and that's okay. Growth often reveals who was truly aligned with you and who was just enjoying the benefits of your brokenness. You deserve to be surrounded by voices that speak life, that call out the greatness in you even when you can't see it for yourself. People who remind you of your resilience, your beauty, your divine purpose. And if you haven't found those voices yet, be that voice for yourself. Get in the mirror and speak over yourself what you've been waiting to hear from someone else. Affirm your power, declare your worth, remind your mind of who you are becoming. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is get quiet, not to hide, but to hear, to shut off the world long enough to hear the whisper of truth rise again in your soul. That still small voice that reminds you that you are more than enough, that you were called, chosen, and equipped for such a time as this. That voice that speaks peace over panic and promise over pressure. You need 10 voices clapping for you. You need one voice of truth reminding you of what you already carry. So when the voices of fear, doubt, and insecurity start rising up, answer them with discernment. When someone tries to plant a seed of limitation in your spirit, dig it up before it roots. When the world tells you to play it safe, to shrink back, to dim your light, turn your volume down on them and turn your faith up. Protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. And the more you guard what you hear, the stronger your mind will become. And a strong mind rooted in truth and nurtured by love becomes a force that cannot be shaken. There's something sacred about the words you speak over yourself. Something powerful happens when you open your mouth and let truth come out, even when your circumstances are trying to scream the opposite. Your words carry weight, and whether you realize it or not, they are either building your future or tearing it down. Too often, we wait for someone else to validate us before we speak life over ourselves. We wait for the applause, the affirmation, the recognition, but what if the breakthrough isn't waiting on them? What if it's waiting on you to look yourself in the mirror and say, I am who God says I am chosen, I am worthy, I am enough. The world has a way of trying to write your identity for you. It takes your mistakes and tattoos them on your soul. It takes your pain and tries to make it your personality, and before long, you're walking through life wearing labels that were never meant for you. But when you start using your voice with intention, when you start affirming the truth of who you are, you begin to strip those labels off. You begin to break agreements with insecurity, with shame, with fear. You start telling your soul, we're not going to live down to what we've been through. We're going to rise to what. There are moments in life when everything you've built feels like it's shaking. The plans you made start falling apart. The people you trusted pull away, and the foundation you thought was solid begins to crack under pressure. And in those moments, when the noise is loud and the pain is heavy, It's not your strength that keeps you standing, it's your faith. Not the kind of faith that only shows up when life is good and everything is going your way, but the kind of faith that shows up when nothing makes sense, when the path is dark, when your heart is breaking and you don't even have the words to pray. That quiet, anchored kind of faith that says, I don't know how this ends, but I know who holds the ending. Faith doesn't mean you won't feel fear. It means you don't let fear have the final word. It means you look at the chaos around you and say, even here, God is with me. It's not a denial of the storm. It's the decision to trust that there's a purpose even in the storm. Faith isn't about pretending that you're not hurting. It's about believing that your hurt won't be wasted, that somehow, even in this, God is weaving redemption through every broken piece. An unbreakable mindset isn't built by avoiding pain. It's built by learning how to walk through pain with your eyes still lifted. And faith gives you the strength to do that. Faith reminds you that you're not alone in your process, that you're not forgotten in your struggle. When everything around you is shifting, faith is what grounds you. It's what holds you steady when the answers don't come quickly, when the prayers take longer than expected, when the door doesn't open right away. We live in a world that tells us we have to be in control, that we need all the steps laid out, that we have to hustle and push and perform to get where we want to be. But faith doesn't work like that. Faith asks you to let go of your grip and trust the process, to believe that even the detours are part of the destiny, that the delay is not a denial, but a setup, that what feels like a closed door might be divine protection. Faith calls you to surrender not in weakness but in wisdom, because surrender doesn't mean you stop moving. It means you stop striving. You stop forcing things that aren't meant for you, and you start flowing with the pace of grace. There are seasons where faith feels like walking through fog. You can't see 5 steps ahead, but you take 1 step anyway, and then another, and then another. And little by little, the path starts to become clear. You don't have to have the whole picture to take the next right step. You just need the courage to trust that light will meet you when you move. That kind of trust doesn't come from logic. It comes from intimacy, from knowing that even when life is unstable, the one who holds your life is not. Faith is also what helps your life is not. Faith is also what keeps your mind in bondage. Isn't just the pain, it's the bitterness that follows. But when you have faith, you understand that forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of carrying it. Faith tells you that letting go doesn't mean you lost. It means you trusted God to handle what you can't. It means you chose peace over revenge, healing over resentment, wholeness over holding on. And sometimes faith looks like rest, like stepping back and breathing instead of forcing everything to make sense. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is rest your mind and remind yourself that it's not all on your shoulders, that you don't have to fix everything, that you can trust that what's meant for you will find you, and what's not meant for you can pass without causing you to fall apart. Faith isn't passive, it's powerful. It gives you discernment, it gives you patience, it helps you resist the pressure to perform, and helps you walk with purpose instead. When you start building your mind on faith, you stop being reactive, you stop letting every setback steal your joy, you stop letting other people's opinions have so much power, because your identity isn't rooted in what they said, it's rooted in what God said. And when you know who you are and whose you are, your mind becomes fortified. The lies can come, but they won't stick. The fears can whisper, but they won't break you. The storms can rage, but they won't drown you, because you've been anchored. You've built your mindset not just on motivational quotes, but on an unshakable truth. There's a boldness that comes with faith, a quiet confidence that says, I don't need to have it all together. I just need to stay connected to the one who holds it all together. You start showing up differently. You start speaking differently. You start thinking differently. You start responding instead of reacting. You begin to walk in rooms knowing that your value isn't up for negotiation. And even when doubt creeps in, even when fear knocks on the door, faith opens it with peace and says, we're not entertaining that today. You can train your mind to stop defaulting to the worst case scenario and start expecting goodness. Faith doesn't mean you won't feel disappointment. It just means you won't be defined by it. It means you believe that joy can still find you, that purpose is still unfolding, that miracles still happen. It gives you the endurance to keep showing up when nothing seems to be shifting. It gives you the eyes to see that the breakthrough may not look like what you imagine, but it's still coming. Faith makes your mindset resilient, not because it removes the struggle, but because it reshapes your response. It helps you ask better questions. Not why is this happening to me, but what is this teaching me? Who am I becoming through this? That shift in perspective is what builds strength. That kind of faith-filled thinking becomes a shield, a source of clarity, a well of hope. It becomes the framework that helps you rebuild when life falls apart, and the fuel that propels you forward when you're ready to rise again. There's a certain power in being consistent that most people overlook because it doesn't always look glamorous. Consistency doesn't come with applause. It doesn't always feel exciting. It doesn't make the highlight reel. But if you ever want to build something that lasts, whether it's your healing, your peace, your purpose, or your mindset, you're going to have to learn how to show up even when the feelings don't. You're going to have to wake up on the days when you feel broken, weary, and overlooked and still say, I'm choosing to keep moving forward. Because that's where the transformation happens. In the quiet repetition, in the faithful small steps, in the decisions that nobody sees but God honors. The enemy doesn't always try to destroy you in one big moment. Sometimes he just tries to wear you down in the day-to-day. He whispers, this isn't working, why bother, no one sees you, no one cares. He tries to make you believe that your effort is wasted. But every time you choose to stay committed, when you keep praying, keep showing up, keep speaking life, keep guarding your peace, you're proving him wrong. You're saying, even if it doesn't look like it right now, I believe something is shifting. I believe these small seeds will grow. It's easy to be excited at the beginning. Everybody loves to start. The vision is fresh. The energy is high. But it's in the middle, the messy, mundane, stretch you until you want to quit middle, where consistency becomes your secret weapon. That's where most people give up. That's where the doubt gets loud. But if you can push through that space, if you can learn to love the process more than the outcome, you'll start to see how strength is built. Not in the sprint, but in the slow, steady rhythm of faithfulness. Consistency is how you train your mind to choose discipline over drama. Every time you say, I'm not letting this distraction pull me away from what I know I'm supposed to be doing, you're reinforcing the strength of your mindset. Every time you forgive again, pray again, affirm yourself again, work the vision again, you are stacking bricks. And one day, those bricks become a wall, a fortress, a legacy. But it doesn't happen overnight. It happens in the unseen. It happens in the, I don't feel like it, but I'm doing it anyway. That's where resilience is born. Don't confuse consistency with perfection. You're going to miss some days. You're going to fall off sometimes. But consistency isn't about never failing. It's about always returning, always coming back to your why, always reminding yourself that one setback doesn't cancel your progress. You don't have to start over every time you mess up. You just have to keep going. There's grace for the stumble, but there's power in the return. So get back up, recommit, reset, realign. You've got to ask yourself, who do I want to become? And what does that version of me do every day? Because transformation doesn't come from hoping, it comes from habits. And those habits are formed through daily choices. It might be a simple 5-minute prayer every morning. It might be writing down 3 things you're grateful for before bed. It might be putting your phone away for an hour to read, to rest, to breathe. Whatever it is, commit to it, protect it, prioritize it like it matters, because it does. Sometimes the breakthrough is hidden in the boring, in the routine, in the thing that doesn't feel spiritual or deep or profound. It's in choosing to think differently, speak differently, and move differently daily. That kind of consistency develops character. It grounds you. It prepares you for the moments when everything you've built gets tested. And when those moments come, you won't crumble, because you've been training, you've been disciplined, you've been showing up. Your consistency will open doors your talent never could. Because talent can get you in the room, but consistency keeps you there. People will notice the fruit of your discipline even when they didn't see the seed. They'll wonder how you keep growing, how you keep glowing, how you keep getting stronger, because they didn't see the hours you spent alone in prayer, in study, in silence, doing the work when nobody was watching. They didn't see you cry and still choose to move. They didn't see the battles you fought internally to stay aligned when everything in you wanted to give up. But that's the beauty of it. You don't need the world to validate your consistency. Heaven already sees it. God honors it. There's something about choosing to stay steady that builds credibility, not just with others, but with yourself. When you're consistent, you start to trust yourself more. You start to believe, if I say I'm going to do this, I will. That builds internal integrity. It strengthens your word to yourself. And when your word to yourself becomes solid, your mindset becomes unstoppable. Because now you're no longer driven by feelings. You're driven by purpose, by conviction, by identity. Let's be honest. There will be times when your emotions try to pull you out of alignment. Times when it feels easier to numb out, to scroll, to complain, to compare, to quit. But that's when you pause, breathe, and remember why you started. Remember who you're becoming. Remember what you're building. And then you choose again. You recommit to the process. Not because it's easy, but because you know it's worth it. You're not just building habits. You're building legacy. You're building a version of you that doesn't just survive. She thrives, he flourishes, they endure. And that version doesn't appear out of nowhere. That version is built every single day, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not with fanfare, but with faithfulness. So keep showing up, keep doing the work, keep speaking life, keep protecting your peace, keep aligning your actions with your assignment, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet. Especially then, because when the harvest comes, and it will, you'll be ready. You won't be surprised by the doors opening, because you'll know you've been sowing. You'll know you've been faithful. You'll know you didn't just wait for it, you worked for it. And all those little consistent steps, they weren't small. They were sacred. They were the building blocks of your unbreakable mindset. They were the evidence of your growth, your discipline, your purpose rising from the inside out. You've got to learn how to protect your environment like your future depends on it, because it does. The people you surround yourself with, the conversations you entertain, the voices you give access to, your heart, all of it matters. You cannot build an unbreakable mindset in a broken atmosphere. You cannot rise in rooms that constantly shrink you. You cannot heal in circles that normalize your dysfunction. At some point, you've got to get bold enough to say, this space no longer fits the version of me I'm becoming. And it's not about thinking you're better than anyone else. It's about knowing that you're called to something greater, and not everything can come with you. There's a cost to elevation. Sometimes that cost is comfort. Sometimes it's connection. Sometimes it's familiarity. But if you want to grow, you've got to be willing to audit what's around you and ask, is this feeding me or draining me? Is this pushing me forward or pulling me back? It's not always easy because some of the people who once cheered for you might start to feel uncomfortable when you start to change, but that's not your burden to carry. You were never called to dim your light to make others comfortable in their shadows. Your breakthrough might cost you proximity, but it will always bless you with clarity. You have to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. Peace isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's the soil where purpose takes root. And if your mind is constantly surrounded by noise, by chaos, by negativity, you're going to struggle to hear your own voice. Sometimes the greatest miracle you can give yourself is silence, space to think, to breathe, to remember who you are without everyone else's opinion clouding your clarity. You don't have to respond to everything. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Protecting your space means choosing your battles and understanding that not every storm deserves your presence. Guarding your environment doesn't mean you isolate yourself. It means you become intentional. It means you start seeking out rooms that challenge you, conversations that sharpen you, people who pray with you, not just play with you. It means you're no longer just looking for connection. You're looking for alignment, because aligned relationships stretch you. They call out the greatness in you. They don't let you settle in comfort when they see potential. And when you surround yourself with those kinds of people, your mindset shifts from scarcity to abundance, from fear to faith, from stagnation to growth. Some of us are fighting battles in our minds that we were never meant to fight alone, but we're too afraid to change our circle. We hold on to connections that keep us bound because we're afraid of being alone. But can I tell you something? Loneliness is not the enemy. Misalignment is. I'd rather be in a season of divine isolation where God is pruning me and preparing me than in a crowd that's keeping me stuck. You've got to get to a place where your future matters more than your fear, where your destiny matters more than their approval. Because the right people won't just tolerate your growth, they'll water it. There's also the internal environment that needs guarding. The thoughts you entertain, the narratives you replay, the insecurities you feed. Your internal space is just as sacred as your external one. If the voice in your head is constantly tearing you down, telling you you're not enough, reminding you of everything you've done wrong, how can you ever rise? Sometimes the loudest enemy isn't outside of you, it's the one within. And part of protecting your environment is confronting that voice, dismantling those lies, and replacing them with truth. Truth that says, I am capable, I am chosen, I am still worthy, even with the scars. Protecting your environment also means setting boundaries. Clear, unapologetic, soul-honoring boundaries. Not to punish others, but to preserve your energy. Not to be rude, but to be rooted. When you say no to what drains you, you create space for what feeds you, and that space is sacred. You don't owe anyone unlimited access to your life just because they've been around for a long time. Loyalty to dysfunction is not a virtue, it's a prison. You're allowed to outgrow spaces. You're allowed to redefine relationships. You're allowed to walk away from what no longer reflects who you're becoming. Sometimes the environment that needs changing is your daily rhythm, the habits that are stealing your time, the distractions that are stealing your focus. You can't ask God for clarity while you keep entertaining chaos. If you're always pouring out but never refilling, always scrolling but never sitting in stillness, always saying yes but never checking in with your own soul, you're going to burn out. Protecting your space means making rest a priority. It means making prayer a priority. It means being okay with missing out on things that aren't aligned with where you're headed. You don't need everyone to understand your boundaries. You don't need everyone to agree with your decisions. You need to be at peace with the fact that Not everyone can come where you're going, and that's okay. Some relationships are for a season, some are for a lesson, and just a few are for a lifetime. But you've got to be discerning enough to know the difference, because when your environment is filled with noise, you won't be able to hear God clearly. You'll mistake pressure for purpose. You'll settle for presence over peace. If you want to build an unbreakable mindset, you've got to be willing to be uncomfortable, to step away from familiar dysfunction, to choose silence over validation, to pursue depth over distraction. And when you do that, when you choose peace over people-pleasing, purpose over popularity, you'll notice your mind start to shift. Your thoughts become clearer, your heart becomes lighter, your vision becomes sharper, and suddenly you realize that you're not just surviving, you're thriving, because you created an atmosphere that supports your becoming. This kind of environment doesn't build itself. You have to curate it, you have to protect it, you have to water it daily. But once it's built, it becomes a refuge, a sanctuary, a space where your dreams can grow, where your healing can deepen, where your mindset can expand. And in that space, you'll begin to realize that the version of you who's been trying to break free was never the problem. She was just planted in the wrong environment, but now she's got room to rise. Building an unbreakable mindset is not about having all the answers, avoiding the struggles, or creating a life of constant comfort. It's about choosing to rise again and again, even when life feels heavy, unpredictable, or chaotic. It's about creating habits that fortify your spirit, surrounding yourself with people who push you towards your purpose, and cultivating a mindset that is grounded in faith, consistency, and the willingness to protect your peace. This journey isn't easy, and it's not always pretty. There will be days of doubt, seasons of uncertainty, and moments when you'll wonder if you're strong enough to keep going. But the truth is, you are. You have everything within you to build a life that reflects your deepest aspirations. It all starts with how you think, how you show up for yourself, and how you choose to see your circumstances. The power of an unbreakable mindset lies not in avoiding challenges, but in transforming how you face them. It's a mindset that doesn't crumble when it encounters obstacles, but rather turns them into opportunities for growth, learning, and resilience. It's a mindset that trusts in the process even when the path isn't clear, and remains faithful to the journey, knowing that every small step is leading you to something greater. As you continue to move forward, remember this: your peace is worth protecting, your purpose is worth pursuing, and most importantly, your mindset is the key that unlocks everything else. Keep guarding it, keep nurturing it, and keep believing in the power of your own strength. Because an unbreakable mindset isn't something you're born with. It's something you build day by day, decision by decision, and it's the foundation that will carry you through every season of life. The best part is that you are never alone in this process. Each step you take is part of a bigger story, a story of growth, resilience, and transformation. Keep building, keep believing, and watch the unbreakable version of yourself rise.